Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel for those of you who are returning. If you are new here, visiting for the first time, thank you for stopping by. I'm Anita with Anita by Design, and here on my YouTube channel, you will find step-by-step, very detailed sew-alongs, tutorials, and pattern reviews to help you with your sewing projects. Today I have a sew-along for you. We're going to be sewing McCall's 7812. I've already done a review on the pattern, so if you want all of the details, then click on the link above and check out that video and then come back here to sew along with me. Now, included with this sew along is a pattern adjustment. There were questions about the wide opening on the neckline, so I have shown you in the beginning of the video, I did an adjustment and added 1/2 inch to the neckline. Now you can add more if you like to close it up even more. The outcome of my adjustment was very slight. There's not a great distance, but you can tell that it's a little bit narrower than the first shirt that I done. And I'll show you a side by side so that you can see that. Now, also, if you would like to bring up the center front, the V here, then you would just use less ruching. When you finish your shirt and you feed the ties through the casings, as you start to ruche, pull, and gather, then it brings this V down. If you don't want it down as low as if you're not comfortable with the positioning of the V that I have on my top right now, then you would just ruche it less so that the V would be higher. Okay, let's get into the sew along. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is tape the pattern piece down onto a piece of paper. And I'm just using regular tracing paper that I had here in my home. You can use whatever you have in your house. So I'm going to use some tape and tape that down. And I've used these pattern weights just to hold the pattern piece down so that it won't shift while I'm taping. Next, we're going to add however much extra to the neckline that we want. Now, you will have to determine how much that is for you. I'm going to just add 1/2 inch, and I'm going to use my Dritz clear ruler. So I'll move the pattern weights down. And using the 1/2 inch measuring line, I'm going to measure up starting right here on this edge. I'm going to measure up 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to mark that out. And then I'm going to curve it around as I go around the curve. Did that make sense? Anyway. If you don't have one of these rulers, well, you should have a ruler. We should all have rulers in our sewing kits, right? And I think I kind of went off. Yeah. I'll go back and fix that. But you get the idea. You're going to go all the way around and measure up 1/2 inch or however much you've determined you want to add to your pattern. Okay? So that's my line, and then you can go back and make it neat if you want to. Okay? So that's the 1/2 inch that I've added. You're going to do the same thing with the back pattern piece at the neckline and the sleeve at the shoulder. Next, we're going to cut along the new cutting line using our paper scissors. Make sure you're not using your fabric scissors to cut paper. So let's just cut along that red line. Okay, and then you can just go and tape down the rest of the white paper on the back side of the pattern. Okay, so this is what our neckline looks like now. with the adjustment made. This is what the back pattern piece will look like after the adjustment. And this is what the sleeve will look like at the top at the shoulder area after the adjustment. Okay, we're starting with the back pattern piece, and we're looking at the right side of the fabric right now. And just in case you didn't make your markings or you can't see your markings on the wrong side of your fabric, because that's how you'll know which side is the wrong side, then a great tip is you can use a little sticky dot or some type of marker on the right side of your fabric to let you know which side you're working with. So we're going to turn this over to the side, and we're going to take one of our fronts, and we're going to place this front with the right sides down so that right sides are facing, and we're going to pin that into place. And first, I'm going to match the notches. Then I'm going to go down to the bottom of the top and pin there. Then I'm going to go up to the top at the armhole and pin. And from there, you can go in between and insert as many pins as you feel necessary to help you to have control while you're sewing. Okay, next we will go to the machine and sew a stitch starting at the bottom of the top, or the side seam, all the way up to the armhole. Now, I'm going to be using my serger. If you don't have a serger, you can use your regular sewing machine. What you're going to do is you're going to sew a seam, a 5/8 inch seam from the bottom to the top, and then you're going to go back and sew another seam inside of your seam allowance about 1/4 inch all the way up. So you're going to be sewing a double seam, or you can use a double needle to sew that. Okay, I'm going to remove the pin, and I'm inserting the top from the bottom. And we're going to sew from the bottom all the way to the top. Okay, and here's what our seam looks like on both sides. Then you're going to take your top, actually you're going to make sure you do this for both sides, so make sure that both fronts get sewn onto the back, and then take your top to your pressing station and you're going to press your seams toward the back of the top. Next, we're going to sew our sleeves. We're looking at the sleeve with the right side facing up, so we're going to take that and fold it in half, matching up the seams or the raw edges, and I'm starting with the notch. I'm going to pin that into place. And we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to insert a seam, from the bottom, the hem of the sleeve, all the way up to the armhole. Okay, starting from the bottom of the sleeve. And we're going to sew all the way to the top. Okay. Again, do the same thing on your other sleeve, and take this to your pressing station and press your seam allowance toward the back of the sleeve. And the back of the sleeve will be the side that has the double notches. Okay, now that we have our sleeve sewn and pressed, we're going to go to the bottom and we're going to hem the sleeve. So we're going to insert a 5/8 inch narrow hem, and we're going to use our seam gauge. Move your marker over to the 5/8 inch measurement, and then you're going to fold up your sleeve. And you will see that I already have fold lines in mine. It's because I already pressed it, but I wanted to show you how I create the narrow hem. So after you fold it up, measure all the way around 5/8 inch, all the way around. After you do that, take the raw edge and fold it in so that it meets the crease that you created with, after you fold this up, press it. So press it on both sides so that you get a crease. And then after you do that, take the raw edge and fold it in so that it meets the crease. Okay, then you're going to turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. Fold it in so that it meets the crease all the way around. Make sure you get the corners, the sides over here. Turn it in so that it meets the crease on both sides. Now mine is going in a little bit easier because it's already folded, but you'll be able to work with it and make sure that it gets all turned under. And then you're going to press that. You're going to press that flat, and that will help you. Okay, now we're going to stitch down the hem. If you need to, go ahead and insert pins to hold your fold, to hold your hem in place. And I have increased the stitch length on my machine to 3.5. You're gonna lower your presser foot and you wanna sew just inside this fold on the inside and beginning in with a back stitch. And there you have it. And we still have the stretch that we need. Okay, now we're going to attach the sleeve to the top. We're looking at the top with the back and the front attached. So we're going to take a sleeve and we're going to place it, the sleeve is turned with the right side facing out. We're going to take the sleeve at the underarm seam and the underarm seam on the top, and we're going to place those together. Now, one thing you want to be very careful about is that you have the right sleeve for the right side of the top. Make sure that your double notch on your sleeve matches the double notch on the back of your top, and then the single notch on the double notch on the back of your sleeve matches the double notch on the back of the top, and the single notch on the front of the sleeve matches the single notch on the front of the top. So starting at the underarm seam, I'm going to pin that in place. And then we're just going to go around the top and pin it. So I'm going to go right up to the top, making sure that those edges are even. Pin that in place. And I'm going to match my notches. So there we have our sleeve attached with the pins, and we're going to go to the machine and we're going to sew that starting on one side of the sleeve. Okay, we have one sleeve inserted. Make sure you do the same thing to the other side and press your seam allowances toward the sleeve. Okay, after you have attached your sleeves to the top, you're going to go around the entire neckline and insert or press in a 5/8 inch narrow hem using the same method I showed you for the sleeve. After you do the neckline, you're going to do the same thing at the bottom of your top to hem it. A 5/8 inch narrow hem. So go ahead and press that up and then you will sew it into place. Okay, now we have our hem in place at the neckline and at the bottom of the top. Next, we're going to sew in our center front seam using a 3/4 inch seam allowance. So let's go ahead and pin this into place. And I'm going to start here at the notches. And then you can go in between and add however many pins you like. Okay, I have my fabric inserted at the 3/4 inch seam line. And we're going to stitch from the bottom to the top. Okay, after you're done with that stitch, you're going to go to your pressing station and you're going to open this out. And you're going to press the seam open. And at this point, it's up to you whether or not you want to finish off these raw edges. If you want to finish them off, you can use your serger, or you can leave it raw. You're working with a knit fabric, so it won't unravel. You don't have to worry about that. So if you want to, you can leave it raw. Okay, now that we have our seam allowances pressed open, we're going to create the casings by sewing a stitch right along the edge of the seam allowance. And I'm going to be using my presser foot, the right edge of the presser foot, and lining it up with the raw edge of the seam allowance to sew it down onto the shirt. So let's go ahead and line that up and stitch. Okay, the pattern suggests 2¼ yards of ribbon for your ties. I don't want to use ribbon. I'm going to use the fabric, the same fabric that I used for the top. And I'm going to have to piece together the ties using the scraps of fabric that are left over. And I don't have a piece long enough. I don't have a 2¼ inch length of fabric to make the ties. So I'm just going to cut strips and piece them together. If you want to do this, here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a cutting mat. You're going to need a ruler, and I'm going to be using my OFA lip edge ruler to cut the pieces. And you're going to need a rotary cutter, and I'm going to show you 3 different rotary cutters that I have in my supplies. This is the OFA rotary cutter, and to engage the blade, you just pull back on the blade cover, and then to cover it, you just push it back. And it just cuts nice and smoothly. Okay. The next rotary cutter I want to show you is this Fiskars rotary cutter. And this one is really nice because it has the ergonomic handle and it feels really good to hold it. To engage the blade, you just push down on the lever, and to close it, you just press this button. Now, something you have to be very careful about when you're using this rotary cutter, let's engage the blade, is when you're cutting, if you are holding it like this and your finger touches that button, this is what happens. And it happens to me a lot because I forget as I'm cutting. So you want to make sure that your thumb is up top or back like this. Okay? And then the last one I want to show you is like the creme de la creme. This is my Ginger rotary cutter, and it's so special that it has its own case. I love it so much. Look at it. Let the heavenly music play. This is my Ginger, and this one also has the ergonomic handle. It feels amazing. To engage the blade, you just pull back on the lever, and you guys, this baby cuts like butter. Yes, I love it. Just close the cover, and there you have it. Now, you want to make sure that you are using sharp blades. You can purchase replacements for your rotary cutters. This set is for my OFA rotary cutter. So every time I start to feel like it's not cutting as smoothly, if it's not as sharp, then I'll go and change my blade. And then I've got a nice sharp blade to use. So you can decide which rotary cutter you want to use. Now, if you don't have these supplies, it's okay. You can still create your ties. You can use your regular scissors, and you can use your tape measure. So you can measure off the width that you need for your ties, mark it, and then you can use a regular ruler. Hopefully you have a yardstick, and I'm just going to demonstrate with my OFA. You can use your yardstick and measure down and mark it mark the width, and then just use your scissors to cut. Okay, and one other thing I forgot to mention, when you are, let me just go ahead. I'm gonna measure off 1 inch for my strips. Okay, and today I'm gonna use my OFA rotary cutter. Let me put the others out of the way. Okay, so make sure that's in place. And I'm gonna press down on the mat or the ruler to make sure it doesn't move, and then just cut. Okay, and so that you can see the rest, I'm gonna slide my mat to the right. Make sure you can see everything. Okay, and then I'll continue cutting. And then I'm going to take my ruler. Let me move that mat down some more so you can see the end. I'm going to take my ruler and slide it down, making sure that I'm still on the 1 inch measuring line. And to make sure, yes. And then, oops, I think I missed a piece there. And then you're just going to pull it. And you see there, I have some pieces that didn't cut. That's because my blade is not sharp all the way around. So it's time to replace this blade. So what I'm going to do is go in between where it didn't cut properly and just give it another pass. Ooh, I need to really change my blade. Okay, and let's go back up here. Yes, it's time to change the blade. Okay, first I'm gonna piece together the strips using a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the short end. Okay, then we're going to open this out. And you can go to the pressing station and press that flat if you like. And after that, we're going to turn it over to the right side. And we're going to fold it lengthwise so that the right sides are meeting, right sides together, all the way down. If you need to, you can use pins. And then we're going to come back and we're going to sew this seam from end to end. Okay, I have my strip of fabric folded in half, which makes this 1/2 inch, and we're going to sew a 1/8 inch seam allowance, which will give us the 3/8 inch tie. Okay, so to start, make sure there's the thread that you should have hanging out the back of your needle. Make sure before you start stitching that you are pulling to the back of the presser foot so that when you start stitching, your fabric doesn't get bunched down into the feed dog. Okay? Okay, and then just continue sewing. Okay, to turn our tube or tie to the right side or right side out, there are 2 different ways you can do it. First, there is the old school method with the safety pin. And just in case you don't know how to do that, you will just take your pin, make sure that both ends of your tube are left open. Take your pin and inside of your tie. Go ahead and pin that. And then you will just feed your pin through the opening. Let me turn it in there. Okay, you will feed your pin through the opening and pull it down. And then you will keep doing that until you have turned the entire tube out. And that's a very effective method. The other method I want to show you is how to use the Dritz tube turners to turn your ties right side out. I like the tube turners because, in my opinion, it's a lot quicker to turn your tubes. So, oh, and you never have to concern yourself or deal with the possibility of that safety pin coming open when you're feeding your ties. If you've ever had that happen, you know how frustrating it is. So this comes in a set of 3. There is a 1/2 inch turner, a 3/8 inch turner, and a 3/16 turner. Today I'm going to use the 3/8 inch turner. And what I have done is I have closed up one end of the tie. So you just insert a stitch across the width of the tie. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove the wooden dowel that comes with the turner. And we're going to insert the turner, the tube turner, inside the fabric tie. And then we're going to feed the tube through the turn, or feed the fabric over the turner and pull it down. And we're going to keep doing that all the way. When you get to that seam, well, if you have a seam, remember I had to piece mine together. So when I get to that seam, I slow down and just work the fabric over the turner to make sure I don't bust that seam. Okay. And keep feeding it until you get to the other end. And then when you get to the end, I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to take the wooden dowel and I'm going to use the pointed end to push it through. And then I'm going to use the flat end to continue pushing through. So I'm going to push the fabric through, and you see what's happening? It's feeding through. And now I'm going to just pull that fabric, and I'm going to start feeding it in the other direction. And when I get to that seam, I'm going to slow it down and keep feeding. And I'm going to pull the fabric down. I'm going to hold on, pulling it. Now, as you're feeding it through, you don't want to let go of the wooden dowel as you continue feeding. So you see how the fabric is all bunched up here? I'm holding on to the wooden dowel and I'm going to start pulling it down. Okay, and then I'm going to continue feeding. And you see, there's the wooden dowel, and it's come through the tube. So I'm going to grab the dowel, and I'm going to pull the fabric. And here, where it's bunched up on the end, I'm just going to pull it. Oops. Okay, and there we have it. There's a wooden dowel, and I'm going to keep pulling this fabric down and working it until I have it all turned right side out. And then I'll show you how we're going to get the wooden dowel from inside. Okay, so there we have it. Now I'm just going to pull the tube off of the dowel. And then to remove the dowel, we're going to just feed the fabric back through over the dowel. And there's our dowel. And there's our tie. All complete. Super easy. I love my Dritz tube turners. They work very well. Our final step is to insert the tie through the casings. I've inserted a safety pin at the end of my tie that is closed off, and I'm going to feed it through the casing from the bottom of the safety pin. So let's insert that through, and we're just going to feed it through and pull. You keep feeding it through all the way to the top. And then when the pin comes out to the top, I'm going to pull down. Okay, and I'm going to keep pulling that down until I have the tie, about half of it out. And then I'm going to go and insert the pin from the top, and I'm going to turn it around and start feeding it through in the opposite direction. And we'll pull it through the bottom. Okay, I have the ties inserted. And then once you put your top on, you will go ahead and tie it. Oh, this other end of the tie that's open, go ahead and make a knot. And then you can remove the safety pin and create a knot with this one too. If you wanted to, you can cut that open so that both ends are open. Okay. And then let me turn it right side out. And then you will create your ruching just by pulling your ties and distributing the gathers to your liking. And then you can just go ahead and create your little bow. And you will be done. Okay, here is a side-by-side view of the first shirt I made before and then the second shirt I made after the alterations. And as you can see on the second shirt that the opening is a bit narrower. If I were to adjust it by an inch, it would close up even more. And then if you will notice at the center front, the ruching is a lot more gathered on the after shirt than it is on the before shirt. So if you wanted that V even higher, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, then you would just gather that a little bit less so that you don't have the low V. And when I look at the top side by side, I actually prefer the before shirt. I didn't have an issue with the wide opening. It was fine for me, but I wanted to provide this adjustment for those of you who are not comfortable with that wide opening. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If so, please hit the like button down below. And if you'd like to see more like this, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the subscription box down below. And after you do that, make sure that you hit the little bell to the right of the subscription box so that you will be notified when I post new content here to my YouTube channel. And I do have more coming. I have more pattern reviews. I'm working on another sew along, and I'm adding some new content, different types of videos to my channel. So stay tuned for that. As always, until next time, remember, when you live in your design, it is from there that God shines. That means when you live according to the way that you have been created, it is from that place that God will use you to bless other people. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.